I mentioned that I had a interesting. The word I always use is complicated with Coach Knight. Coach Knight hated the Sports Center anchors. He hated probably Keith Olbermann more than me, but it was by proxy because we were doing the 11 o'clock Sports Center at the time. And I just remember there was a clip in a highlight, and Bob Knight was grabbing his son. And I think Keith may have used the words "at home with the Knights." And I remember Bob Knight didn't want to do anything with ESPN. And it was Jay Billis. Jay Billis was out at Indiana. He was going to do a game. And Bob Knight asked Jay Billis basically about, is there any, good Sports Center anchor who knows basketball? And Jay Billis, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, Dan Patrick. And he said, have him call me. So Jay Billis comes back to campus and he said, hey, Bob Knight wants you to call him. And I go, oh, no. And he goes, no, I told him you know basketball. I call the Indiana basketball office. Secretary puts me through. And he's like, Billis said you know basketball. I said, yeah. And I started telling him of people. Don Donaher was the Dayton basketball coach. He loved Coach Donaher. So we just started talking basketball. And I still wasn't sure where this was going. And he says to me, hey, you ever need me on your show? You call. And I'm thinking, what? And we had him on numerous times. I remember we had him on, and we wanted to talk football. It was Ohio State, Michigan. And we surprised him because he went to Ohio State, played basketball. And we had Bo Schembechler on, who was one of his idols, Michigan head coach. And oh my gosh, he just loved it. Called back and thanked us. Then we were talking baseball a couple of years later. He's friends with Tony La Russa, Cardinals in the World Series. We surprised Coach Knight when he was on and we had Tony La Russa call in. He loved that. And then when I started doing the 6 o'clock Sports Center, the first night I'm doing the 6 o'clock Sports Center, we had Bob Knight on. He was at Texas Tech. Paulie and Fritzy sent him a Dan Patrick Show sweatshirt. Now, he's got a clipboard in front of Dan Patrick Show on his sweatshirt. I don't know that he's doing this. I know we're having him on. And I introduce him. He drops the clipboard. And he basically says, what the hell is this? Why do I have this on? And it just kind of, further emphasized that I was part of the inner circle there with Bob Knight. I had friends who played for him. I had people who swore by him and swore at him. And, once again, a complicated relationship, complicated person. You can't talk about Bob Knight, the basketball coach, and not talk about Bob Knight and everything else. You can't talk about everything else and not talk about Bob Knight, basketball coach. The basketball part I always thought was the easiest part for him. This is a coach who demanded poise, composure, but he didn't have it. But he knew basketball. The Neil Reed where he grabs him by the throat. A former coworker of mine, Robert Abbott, is the one who discovered that video. Brought that to light. Throwing the chair, how he treated his players. There had to be a certain makeup for you to be able to survive playing for Bob Knight. It's almost like, they talk about Lombardi, the Packers. Hey, he treated us all the same like dogs. But they all talk about how what Lombardi instilled in them made them great men, great businessmen. And, Bill Parcells to me was, he followed in Bob Knight's footsteps of how he treated the media and maybe how he treated his players as well. But I remember when I first saw Parcells at a press conference, I went, oh, man, he's Bob Knight. We did have the moment, and it's a moment that I wasn't sure what was going to happen, but I was going to ask the question because I was asking the question as a basketball fan. I grew up 2.5 hours away from Bloomington. I knew the importance of Bob Knight. I knew what he meant to that fan base. And when we're talking fishing, we're talking basketball, we're talking about a variety of things. And then on March 10th of 2017, I asked this question. Why do we want you to go back to Assembly Hall so bad? I know that might not be on your wish list or front burner here, but why do we, the fans, want closure with this, Coach?
Well, I think that I've always really enjoyed the fans, and I always will. You know, on my dying day, I will think about how great the fans at Indiana were. And as far as the hierarchy at Indiana University at that time, I have absolutely no respect whatsoever for those people. And with that in mind, I have no interest in ever going back to that university.
Most of those people aren't all those people out of there, though, Coach?
I hope they're all dead.
Well, I know some of them are, but I don't know.
I hope the rest of them go.
Yeah, I'd like to still see you on that court with that 76 team or Isaiah's team. I don't know. Maybe we want closure. Maybe you don't need the closure. I don't know. But, I still hope for it one day.
Well, hope rides eternal.
He went back in 2020. And I actually tried to work behind the scenes to make that happen. Whether it had any influence on Coach Knight going back, I just was reminding people of this is about those people, not the people in administration there. They were all gone. Those people were still there, and they needed to say thank you. They needed to say goodbye, and he needed to say thank you, and he needed to say goodbye. I thought it was imperative. I thought that it would be something that he would take the rest of his life and regret. And he went back, and I think he truly appreciated that. He went back because he was going through treatment. He was living in Bloomington, but he wouldn't go to campus. But hopefully there's closure. Once again, complicated.